I've seen some comments on my videos about the new input system saying it's just harder to use than the old input system. And frankly, that's true based on how my channel and most other channels have presented the new input system. But there's an easy mode that rarely gets talked about. Now, easy mode loses some of the functionality and some of the power of the new input system, but it does claw back a lot of the ease of use of the old input system. So if you're prototyping something or you're okay hard coding your inputs into your code, then easy mode presents a quick and easy way to implement your player input functionality. And it even brings some advantages when implementing Gamepad functionality over the old input system. My preferred method with the new input system is to generate a C# class and use C# events. There are a lot of advantages to this, but it can take some time to set up, and it can fluff up your code by subscribing, unsubscribing, and responding to all those events. I think developers wanting to avoid that workflow is pretty reasonable if you're just trying to quickly prototype something or your project is pretty simple. So, easy mode. In an update function, we can do the same kinds of things that we could with the old input system, like what's shown here to get the input from the keyboard. This code has the same functionality as GetKey, GetKeyDown, and GetKeyUp, but instead we're using isPressed, wasPressed this frame, and wasReleased this frame. Hopefully this goes without saying that this works with any key on the keyboard. You just change the line of code and which key is being queried. If you can't find the exact key, make use of autocomplete. It's definitely your friend. We can do similar things with the mouse and recreate the functionality of getMouseButton, and getMouseButtonUp. This time we're using isPressed, wasPressed this frame, and wasReleased this frame. So what about reading the position of the mouse? Again, piece of cake. We use mouse.current.position.readValue. And this can be really handy for scrolling a map when players mouse over to the edge of a screen, or when you need to raycast from the camera through the mouse to detect where in the scene a player may be pointing or clicking. What about the scroll wheel? Again, no problem, just read the value and you get back a vector 2, just like with the old system. Is there easy mode for gamepads? Of course there is, and it works pretty much the same way as it did for keyboards and it did for mice. We can easily read the left stick, the right stick, all of the buttons, as well as the shoulders and trigger buttons. This is also where we see the first big advantage of easy mode over the old input system. We're not having to muck about in the old input manager defining this and that and filling our code with string references to axes and buttons. It just works. But one note of caution, it's quite possible that a gamepad is not connected, as opposed to a keyboard or a mouse. So checking if the current gamepad is null before reading values can help prevent errors in the console. Easy mode is awesome, especially for gamepads where it truly brings easier implementation than with the old input system. Plus, since you're using the new input system, it should support a wider range of gamepads out of the box with zero effort. But it is important to note that you're leaving some of the power and functionality of the new input system on the table, so to speak, by implementing easy mode. Most notably in my mind, you don't have support for multiple gamepads, at least not reasonably and easily. Also, if you're implementing equal functionality between keyboard and gamepads, you're likely to end up with a lot of duplicate and rather ugly code sitting in the middle of an update function. But again, if you're just quickly prototyping something or you're working on a truly simple project, that might be a worthwhile trade-off. So at the end, I hope that was interesting and better yet, useful for you and your project. And until next time, happy game designing.